The Perks of Being a Wallflower, February 2nd, 1992. Dear friend, On the Road was a very good book. Bill didn't ask me to write a paper about it because, like I said, it was a reward. He did ask me to visit him in his office after school to discuss it, which I did. He made tea, and I felt like a grown up. He even let me smoke a cigarette in his office, but he urged me to quit smoking because of the health risk. He even had a pamphlet in his desk that he gave me. I now use it as a bookmark. I thought Bill and I were going to talk about the book, but we ended up talking about things. It was great to have so many discussions back to back. Bill asked me about Sam and Patrick and my parents, and I told him about getting my license and talking in the big boy. I also told him about my psychiatrist. I didn't tell him about the party or my sister and her boyfriend, though. They're still seeing each other in secret, which my sister says only adds to their passion. After I got through telling Bill about my life, I asked him about his. It was nice, too, because he didn't try to be cool and relate to me or anything. He was just himself about it. He said that he studied undergraduate work at some college in the West that doesn't give grades, which I thought was peculiar, but Bill said it was the best education he ever got. He said he'd give me a brochure when the time was right. After he went to Brown University for graduate school, Bill traveled around Europe for a while, and when he came home, he joined Teach for America. When this year is over, he thinks he's going to move to New York and write plays. I guess he's still pretty young, although I thought it would be rude to ask him. I did ask him if he had a girlfriend, though, and he said he didn't. He seemed sad when he said it, too, but I decided not to pry because I thought that would be too personal. Then he gave me my next book to read. It's called Naked Lunch. I started reading it when I got home, and to tell you the truth, I don't know what the guy is talking about. I would never tell Bill this. Sam told me that William S. Burroughs wrote the book when he was on heroin and that I should go with the flow. So I did. I still had no idea what he was talking about, so I went downstairs to watch television with my sister. The show was Gomer Pyle, and my sister was quiet and moody. I tried to talk to her, but she just told me to shut up and leave her alone. So I watched the show for a few minutes, but it made even less sense to me than the book, so I decided to do my math homework, which was a mistake because math has never made any sense to me. I was just confused all day. So I tried to help my mother in the kitchen, but I dropped the casserole, so she told me to read in my room until my father came home. But reading is what started this whole mess in the first place. Luckily, my father came home before I could pick up the book again, but he told me to stop hanging on his shoulders like a monkey because he wanted to watch the hockey game. I watched a hockey game with him for a while, but I couldn't stop asking him questions about which countries the players are from, and he was resting his eyes, which means he was sleeping but didn't want me to change the channel. So he told me to go watch television with my sister, which I did, but she told me to go help my mother in the kitchen, which I did, but then she told me to go read in my room, which I did. I've read about a third of the book now, and it's pretty good so far. Love always, Charlie. February 8th, 1992. Dear friend, I have a date for the Sadie Hawkins dance. In case you didn't have one of those, it's the dance where the girl asks the boy. In my case, the girl is Mary Elizabeth, and the boy is me. Can you believe it? I think it started when I was helping Mary Elizabeth staple the latest issue of Punk Rocky on Friday before we went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Mary Elizabeth was so nice that day. She said that it was the best issue we'd ever had for two reasons, and both of those reasons were mine. First of all, it was in color, and second, it had the poem that I gave Patrick in it. It really was a great issue. I think I'll even think so when I'm older. Craig included some of his color photographs. Sam included some underground news on some bands. Mary Elizabeth wrote an article about the Democratic candidates. Bob included a reprint of a pro hemp pamphlet. And Patrick made this fake coupon advertising a free blowjob for anyone who buys a smiley cookie at the big boy. Some restrictions apply. There was even a new photograph from the back of Patrick, if you can believe it. Sam had Craig take the picture. Mary Elizabeth told everyone to keep it a secret that the photograph was Patrick. which everybody did, except Patrick. All night, he kept yelling, "Flaunt it, baby, flaunt it," which is his favorite line from his favorite movie, The Producers. Mary Elizabeth told me she thought that Patrick asked her to put the photograph in the issue so Brad could have a photograph of him without it being suspicious. But he wouldn't say for sure. Brad bought a copy without even looking at it, so maybe she was right. When I went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show that night, Mary Elizabeth was really mad because Craig didn't show up. Nobody knew why. Not even Sam. The problem was nobody was there to play Rocky, the muscular robot. I'm not quite sure what he is. After looking around at everybody, Mary Elizabeth turned to me. "Charlie, how many times have you seen the show?" 10. "Do you think you can play Rocky?" "I'm not cut and hunky." "It doesn't matter. Can you play him?" "I guess." "Do you guess or do you know?" "I guess." "Good enough." The next thing I know, I was wearing nothing but slippers and a bathing suit, which somebody painted gold. I don't know how these things happen to me sometimes. I was very nervous, especially because in the show, Rocky has to touch Janet all over her body, and Sam was playing Janet. Patrick kept making jokes that I would get an erection. I really hoped this wouldn't happen. Once, I got an erection in class and had to go to the blackboard. It was a terrible time. And when my mind took that experience and added a spotlight in the fact that I was only wearing a bathing suit, I panicked. I almost didn't do the show. But then Sam told me she really wanted me to play Rocky. And I guess that's all I really needed to hear. I won't go into detail about the whole show, but I had the best time I ever had in my whole life. I'm not kidding. I got to pretend that I was singing, and I got to dance around, and I got to wear a feather boa in the grand finale, which I wouldn't have thought anything of because it's part of the show. But Patrick couldn't stop talking about it. "Charlie in a feather boa! Charlie in a feather boa!" He just couldn't stop laughing. But the best part was the scene with Janet, where we had to touch each other. It wasn't the best part because I got to touch Sam and have her touch me. It's the exact opposite. I know that sounds dumb, but it's true. Just before the scene, I thought about Sam, and I thought that if I touched her in that way on stage and meant it, it would be cheap. And as much as I think I might want to someday touch her like that, I never want it to be cheap. I don't want it to be Rocky and Janet. I want it to be Sam and I want her to mean it back. So, we just played. When the show was over, we all bowed together and there was applause everywhere. Patrick even shoved me in front of the rest of the cast to take my own personal bow. I think this is the initiation for new cast members. All I could think was how nice it was that everyone applauded for me and how glad I was that nobody in my family was there to see me play Rocky in a feather boa, especially my dad. I did get an erection though, but not until later in the parking lot of the Big Boy. That's when Mary Elizabeth asked me to the Sadie Hawkins dance after she said, "You looked really good in your costume." I like girls, I really do, because they can think you look good in a bathing suit even when you don't. The erection made me feel guilty in hindsight though, but I guess it couldn't be helped. I told my sister about having a date for the dance, but she was really distracted. Then I tried to ask her advice about how to treat a girl on a date since I'd never had a date before, but she wouldn't answer. She wasn't being mean, she was just staring off into space. I asked her if she was okay, and she said that she needed to be alone. So I went up and finished Naked Lunch. After I finished, I just laid around in my bed, looking at the ceiling, and I smiled because it was a nice, quiet kind. Love always, Charlie. February 9th, 1992. Dear friend, I have to say something about my last letter. I know that Sam would never ask me to the dance. I know that she will bring Craig, and if not Craig, then Patrick, since Brad's girlfriend, Nancy, is going with Brad. I think Mary Elizabeth is a really smart and pretty person, and I'm glad that she is my first date ever. But after I said yes, and Mary Elizabeth announced it to the group, I wanted Sam to be jealous. I know it's wrong to want something like that, but I really did. Sam wasn't jealous, though. To tell you the truth, I don't think she could have been happier about it, which was hard. She even told me how to treat a girl on a date, which was very interesting. She said that with a girl like Mary Elizabeth, you shouldn't tell her she looks pretty. You should tell her how nice her outfit is because her outfit is her choice, whereas her face isn't. She also said that with some girls, you should do things like open car doors and buy flowers. But with Mary Elizabeth, especially since it's the Sadie Hawkins dance, I shouldn't do that. So I asked her what I should do, and she said that I should ask a lot of questions and not mind when Mary Elizabeth doesn't stop talking. I said that it didn't sound very democratic, but Sam said she does it all the time with boys. Sam did say the sex things were tricky with Mary Elizabeth since she's had boyfriends before and is a lot more experienced than I am. She said that the best thing to do when you don't know what to do during anything sexual is pay attention to how that person is kissing you and kiss them back the same way. She says that is very sensitive, which I certainly want to be. So I said, "Can you show me?" And she said, "Don't be smart." We talk to each other like that every now and then. It always makes her laugh. After Sam showed me a Zippo lighter trick, I asked her more about Mary Elizabeth. What if I don't want to do anything sexual with her? Just say you're not ready. Does that work? Sometimes. I wanted to ask Sam about the other side of sometimes, but I didn't want to be too personal, and I didn't want to know deep down. I wish I could stop being in love with Sam. I really do. Love always, Charlie. February 15th, 1992. Dear friend, I don't feel very well because everything is messy. I did go to the dance and I did tell Mary Elizabeth how nice her outfit was. I did ask her questions and I let her talk the whole time. I learned a lot about objectification, Native Americans, and the bourgeois. But most of all, I learned about Mary Elizabeth. She wants to go to Berkeley and get 2 degrees. One is for political science, the other is for sociology with a minor concentration in women's studies. Mary Elizabeth hates high school and wants to explore lesbian relationships. I asked if she thought girls were pretty, and she looked at me like I was stupid and said, "That's not the point." Mary Elizabeth's favorite movie is Reds. Her favorite book is an autobiography of a woman who was a character in Reds. I can't remember her name. Mary Elizabeth's favorite color is green. Her favorite season is spring. Her favorite ice cream flavor, she says she refuses to eat low fat frozen yogurt on principle alone, is Cherry Garcia. Her favorite food is pizza, half mushrooms, half green peppers. Mary Elizabeth is a vegetarian and she hates her parents. She is also fluent in Spanish. The only thing she asked me the whole time was whether or not I wanted to kiss her goodnight. When I said that I wasn't ready, she said she understood and told me what a great time she had. She said I was the most sensitive boy she ever met, which I didn't understand because really all I did was not interrupt her. Then she asked me if I wanted to go out again sometime, said which Sam and I hadn't discussed. So I wasn't prepared to answer it. I said yes because I didn't want to do anything wrong, but I don't think I can think of a whole other night's worth of questions. I don't know what to do. How many dates can you go on and still not be ready to kiss? I don't think I will ever be ready for Mary Elizabeth. I'll have to ask Sam about this. Incidentally, Sam took Patrick to the dance after Craig said he was too busy. I guess they had a big fight about it. Finally, Craig said that he didn't want to go to some stupid high school dance since he had already graduated. At one point in the dance, Patrick went to the parking lot to get stoned with his guidance counselor, and Mary Elizabeth was requesting that the DJ play some girl bands, which left Sam and me alone. "Are you having a good time?" Sam didn't answer right away. She just kind of looked sad. "Not really. Are you?" "I don't know. This is my first date, so I don't know what to compare it to." "Don't worry. You'll be fine." "Really? You want some punch?" "Sure." With that, Sam left. She really did look sad, and I wished I could have made her feel better. But sometimes I guess you just can't. So I stood alone by the wall and watched the dance for a while. I would describe it to you, but I think it's the kind of thing where you have to be there or at least know the people. But then again, maybe you knew the same people when you went to your high school dances, if you know what I mean. The one different thing about this particular dance was my sister. She was with her boyfriend, and during a slow song, it looked like they had a huge fight because he stopped looking at her and she rushed off the dance floor to where the bathrooms are. I tried to follow her, but she had too much of a head start. She never came back to the dance, and her boyfriend eventually left. After Mary Elizabeth dropped me off, I went into the house and found my sister crying in the basement. This was a different kind of crying. It kind of frightened me. I talked very quiet and slow. Are you okay? Leave me alone, Charlie. No, really. What's wrong? You wouldn't understand. I could try. That's a laugh. That's really a laugh. Do you want me to wake up mom and dad then? No. Well, maybe they could. Charlie, shut up, okay? Just shut up. That's when she really started crying. I didn't want to make her feel worse, so I turned to leave her alone. That's when my sister started hugging me. She didn't say anything. She just hugged me tight and wouldn't let go. So I hugged her back. It was weird too because I've never hugged my sister. Not when she wasn't forced to anyway. After a while, she calmed down a bit and let go. She took a deep breath and brushed off the hair that was sticking to her face. That's when she told me she was pregnant. I will tell you about the rest of the night, but I honestly don't remember much about it. It's all a very sad days. I do know that her boyfriend said it wasn't his baby, but my sister knew that it was, and I do know that he broke up with her right there at the dance. My sister hasn't told anybody else about it because she doesn't want it to get around. The only people who know are me, her, and him. I'm not allowed to tell anyone we know. Not anyone. Not ever. I told my sister that after a while she probably couldn't hide it, but she said she wouldn't let it go that far. Since she was 18, she didn't need mom or dad's permission. All she needed was someone to be with her next Saturday at the clinic. And that person was me. It's lucky I got my license now. I said that to make her laugh, but she didn't. Love always, Charlie.